Welcome to another episode of Ethos of a Warrior presented by the Warrior Leader Academy. Today, I am super excited. My special guest is Colonel Samuel Glover. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, definitely excited to have this great opportunity, and thanks so very much for the ask. It's one of those things of knowing you both as a war fighter, both on the front lines, working at, of course, Fort Hood, but then also knowing you as a Army leader there, helping future leaders at West Point. So it's just always so amazing how we get the great opportunity to give back. I've had the great opportunity of being both enlisted and an officer, so as well as getting a chance to work both through that National Guard or Reserve side and being active duty as well too. And the amazing thing that it's always so humbling to say, where does 28 years go when you're serving this great nation? But service matters, and being a servant leader is one of the things that I'm humbled by. I'm blessed to have both a lovely wife that has been with me for this long journey, as well as two great kids. And the strength of the military family is the strength of the Army, and the strength of the Army is the strength of the nation. That's one of the things that General Ordinero, who just recently passed, has always said. And you definitely get a chance to see how important that is as you try to navigate this amazing journey of life, and the importance of both people first, but then also family first as well too, and navigating this lifelong journey of service.
Speaking of family, I will say that even though I only spent about 6 months kind of working under you, one of the things I noticed is you're very passionate about your people. Is that something that you've always had, or is that something you've adapted throughout the military? Where did you get that kind of empathy and compassion for others?
You know, I always have this short story that I always tell really quickly, the story of two that really changed and shaped my life. My grandfather on my dad's side was a Marine, and that my grandfather on my mother's side was a Army specialist. So both of them went to World War II, and as luck would have it, many of the minority soldiers at the time had the chance to fight on the West Coast, or I guess as they transitioned to the both fight Japan and some of the things that were going on there. So they met, believe it or not, in Hawaii. My mother's father met my grandfather Glover, who was in Germany as he was passing through, would fight one of the great battles, Guadalcanal. And it was just amazing, that piece of service. One, a young man that was in the Army, of course, supplying logistics, and of course, helping another one that would be on the front lines as a combat soldier. But it's amazing that one would go on to be a minister, and the other one would go on and be a humble servant and police officer. So it was humble to see those two sides, one as a leader, a servant leader, and then the other one from a trustee and humble servant piece of always helping and being kind to others. So both learned a lot from, and both always gave a lot of positive energy towards always helping others. And a big part of that was two great families that through the blood, sweat, and tears, so no matter what it is, you always are there for your family. And, of course, the sacrifice of both being a part of military families.
28 years of service. You said you've done both enlisted and officer time. Have you had people that have helped you both enlisted officer? Have you shifted mentors? How has mentorship helped you get to the point you're at?
Yeah, I will say that first, so much of life starts with, of course, mentors growing up. And a lot of it, of course, we think the military is you go to the military, you go through basic training, AIT, you go through the captain's career course, the lieutenant course, somewhere you go in there and you think, hey, these are the leaders that will shape my life. And you definitely are inspired by them. But like I talked about earlier, it's just amazing how many folks when your communities, you get a chance to look back that really shape you, whether it was an English teacher or whether it was a football coach or whether it was both of my great grandfathers who spent a lot of time. A lot of my parents were busy going throughout their day. So when my grandfather got off work, it was just pretty amazing. My grandfather, Mac, he spent a lot of time. We were in the garden, and those life lessons of the garden and helping people was just so very impactful. But as I transitioned to getting a little older, being in the military, it was just a powerful backbone of great enlisted soldiers. Pivotal being there, just understanding that both enlisted as how they had walked a mile in your moccasins already, and the pivotal piece of them really explaining, hey, this is what worked for me. And recently, COL had passed. So you also have your boots on the ground, in-person mentors, but then you also have ones that may be a little separate or further away from you, and how those leadership principles sort of help and guide you. I know COL had about 13 that were really pivotal to him, but it was also great to see how both NCOs and officers had a great impact on my life, along with the community leaders that I would meet along the way too. It's very interesting that you'll be at church or whether it's something else, that as you connect with your military communities, whether it's a Fort Bragg or Fort Hood, as you connect with those communities, you'll be shocked to see how those community leaders also impact and shape you. So I'm always amazed, like a sponge. You're impacted by people wherever you go. It's just whether or not, whether to be open and gain something from their perspective. But we'll definitely say that those first drill sergeants, Drill Sergeant Ross, I had one that was like Drill Sergeant Powers, looks like Sergeant Slaughter, believe it or not, when I was in basic training. And I said, if I could survive these guys, I'll be able to take on the world. And let me just tell you, they gave me everything I needed as a young combat engineer to take on the world, along with the blessing of being in a really good ROTC program as well, too, that helped shape and mold me at the time at South Carolina State University, one of the Bulldog battalions.
So as you've gone from being a mentee to a mentor, I count you as a mentor. So how do you find the time? You're raising a family, you're getting after it, you're doing a lot of stuff. How do you find the time and energy to also then give back as a mentor to others?
Well, one of the things that is always such a blessing, and like I said, just having a strong spiritual base. Like I said before, I had one grandfather who was a minister and one that was like a trustee. So I saw both sides of that leadership side. Sometimes you got to lead, but then also you got to both carry on the mission of both serving our great nation, but then also taking care of the people. And a lot of the times I always have this piece of focus that sometimes it will be, of course, at the job or at the workplace. And I think as we come on as junior soldiers, you automatically think the workplace is where it takes place at. But you realize that at some point, each one of those war fighters either has to go on back to a barracks room where they may not have anyone except their battle buddies to the left or right, or they may get a chance to go back to their family. That may be an immediate family. But at the same note, they left a family as well, too. So making sure that we realize the importance of the military family as we go through is just so very pivotal throughout this journey. So I knew and have learned more and more that it's very, very humbling to see how strong the military family is, because in many cases, you spend more time with whoever you work with. It doesn't have to necessarily be the military. Somewhere about 6 to 8 hours with the folks that's in your workforce. So you learn a little bit about their families, you learn about them, what gets them started, what gets them motivated. And the big thing is motivated so we can all work together. And understanding and treating them like your family just makes life so much easier. You know, it used to be this thing that said mission first and people always. But one of the great things about General McConville, he changed it when he came on because he said people first, winning, Army strong. So a big part of how I sort of focus and lead has sort of been from that. If you take care of the people, they will take care of the mission. But understanding the people is equally as important as we all live to be Army strong. So I sort of tweak or change when you say that winning matters. I also say that teamwork matters, and understanding the team and treating them like family is always so very, very important as we move forward.
It's all about building the team, working through a team. We can't do it all by ourselves, right? So earlier we were talking, you said you have amazing kind of a 5C concept that you use for mentorship. So can you talk to me a little about what the 5 C's are and how you use them?
Yeah, so the 5 C's, I started tweaking it more and more over the past 5 to 7 years, but I realized very on that one of the first manuals that a lot of soldiers miss out on, you look at a combat or operations magazine, you look at some sustainment thing or whatever aircraft or platform that you're driving, those manuals always get a little more time and attention. But I will say FM1, which is Field Manual 1, highlights the importance of both competence and character being a staple of the key foundation for any soldier, any leader. So competence and character always first, followed by communication. I have one that's the connections and then compassion. So the big 5 have that. And then followed by what is going to be your legacy at any great organization. A big part of mentoring is understanding those key principles to help lead them towards success, both leadership or mentorship. It's just so very pivotal. And the reason why I talk about the first of the big C's in that field manual is so important is competence, because when people know that you're expert at your craft, you're working hard, you fully understand it, and that builds sort of that foundation of, hey, I want to be the best tanker, I want to be the best folks on the Bradley, I want to be the best person on the Black Hawk. I had some Black Hawk time. I was also teaching students. So I realized early on that teaching piece was going to be very pivotal. And it was pretty interesting. My mother was a teacher, as well as my dad taught a couple of classes. So I realized that education and teaching and mentoring and having a solid foundation was really, really important. But then you sort of switch to the importance of the character piece. And General Casey had a big important piece where he brought back the Army values. And someone would say, why do you have to tell people Army values? Everyone should be on the same Army value. But we all learn and grow a little differently. Have different backgrounds. We made different perspectives on life. We may have been hurt or injured mentally or physically in a certain way. So understanding the importance of having characters. So it's leadership, duty, respect, selfless service, honesty, integrity, personal courage. Those things really help shape you as you sort of guide and lead in. So that's why that competence of character. But there's a 45-second rule that General Carbler taught me here at the Space and Missile Defense Command. He said, you can take 45 seconds to fix something and make it and adjust it and tweak it, but you could spend the next 4 to 5 months, 4 to 5 years if there's a character flaw. And it really takes a long time to try to rebound when you have something like that takes place. So you want to make sure that, whether anyone's watching or not, and I always use this thing, whether it's your parents, because there's always that piece. If your parents are watching, what would you do? If grandma was watching, what would you do? If the Pope or your religious leader or God was watching, would you do the same thing? And even if Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos was watching over your shoulder, would you do the same thing? So always use that piece as a character piece, because you want to be trusted so that you can be that leader that really shapes and grows. Now, I can either go into the last three right quick, but the two are the key foundational piece, competence and character. So that's one of the pieces. Now, I'll switch to this communications. Communications is just so pivotal because we have these terms in the military. Bottom line up front, and bottom line up front with recommendations. So I actually add R to it, and they'll use these terms BLUF and then -R. And there's ones is called KISS, keep it simple. And so it's always interesting ones that you learn in the military and background discussion, recommendation. But those things, understanding that each organization communicates in a different and certain kind of way. But it's one thing to identify a problem. It's another thing to identify the recommendation. I will say there will be a whole bunch of soldiers and fellow leaders that will bring you problems. But I would say let's spend the time. This probably isn't the first time that has happened. So you can ask 1st Platoon, a 2nd Platoon, 1st Brigade, a 2nd Brigade, or someone at Headquarters DA, or a fellow battle buddy that may be at Fort Hood versus Fort Bragg. But I guarantee you, more than likely, the great art of communication, most of these things have already happened again. So it really helps me when understanding the fine art of communication with recommendation. The next one I highlight is connections. Connections is so very pivotal because, of course, you think about your workforce, you think about your team, supervising, leading, you want to follow. And the great thing about Army leadership is everyone is taught to be an amazing and great leader. But I will point out this horizontal and vertical piece is so pivotal because you're going to have people that's in your workplace. How do you pull back folks that may be junior soldiers? You mentioned earlier, the importance for me has always been, I'm going to meet a 2nd lieutenant, I'm going to meet a 1st lieutenant, I'm going to meet a captain, and I don't want them to go through what I had to go through. But at the same note, there's great value in failure. So understanding someone else's mistakes, that's just so amazing. But before you walk a mile in my moccasins, I just say, hey, ask me, and let me tell you what some of the things I've done. But I will say that there's such a powerful success in that you may fail, but understand a battle buddy to the left or right might have gone through it. And the important piece of going to the range, and he tells me, hey, this is what the safety officer did. This is what someone else did to make it the best range ever. So let's make it the best range ever as we're helping people, helping the mission, and soldiering on the battlefield. And the last one, of course, is compassion. I say that so many leaders, of course, will lead with an iron hand. And the one great thing is whether you're a great NCO or whether you're a great officer, for the first time, the military code of justice allows you to provide justice on something that someone might have done wrong. But I will say most cases, 80% of our soldiers wake up wanting to do the right thing, wanting to make a difference. So let's understand why that might have happened. How can we help them? How can we encourage them? How can we point them in the right direction? Because I guarantee you, just like Colonel Sam Glover, and I could say Private Sam Glover, or even Sergeant Sam Glover, 2nd Lieutenant Sam Glover, all made certain mistakes along the journey. My goal is so that we can all use this great military environment, our environment of life, to be a learning place. And that's what's been so very pivotal towards my journey. So I know that was a lot with the big 5 C's, but it gave a foundation for where I wanted to take you, and then how we can have the rest of this discussion as we move forward.
One of the things you mentioned, that compassion or that empathy, being able to relate to others. So you mentioned kind of briefly coaching, teaching, mentoring, 3 very unique things that have some overlap, but definitely have different bearings, right? So from the coach, teach, mentor, you've held all 3 of those roles. Which is more rewarding for you?
Well, I think one of the great thing about it is understanding, and I use the Super Friends. So I grew up watching Superman, of course, Batman and Wonder Woman and all the Legion of Doom. But each one of those great characters all had superpowers. And I think naturally as a coach sometimes or teacher, you're teaching the basic craft or skill that may be at a job. So it's execute this mission, whether it's going to gunnery or whether it's going to be a platoon leader. But the reality of it is when I get a chance to mentor, the great thing about it is it's unleashing those superpowers when at the time you're thinking that it's just about completing the job. But the amazing thing is when you're smart enough to understanding that each one of your team members has a special superpower. So some may be a little better with operations. Some may be a little better with logistics. Some do a little better with personnel and making sure everybody's taken care of, everybody's paid, someone's got food and stuff like that. So understanding what is your superpower, and that goes back to I got the 5 C's, but the big part of that is what is your legacy? And a big piece of what of your legacy is focused around the important piece of when you go to any organization, understanding the impact that each one of our amazing folks can have on an organization. And that's a lot where the mentorship comes in, because I want you to tap into your hidden potential, your super place. I realize that through my journey that each one of us has that. And I realize that certain times I might have been the smartest person in the room, but certain times it was more about leadership and getting the right people together. And that was just so very amazing. My perspective with a second lieutenant or first lieutenant was different because I had this energy, this enthusiasm, and point me in the right direction. And I thought a different way. Well, my perspective as a lieutenant colonel or colonel was a more sage perspective on leadership. But I also had to make sure that folks were able to grow and use their talents. And then, like I said before, either fail or succeed. So a big thing is unleashing those talents, but more importantly, as a mentor, helping individuals accomplish their dreams has been the most amazing piece that has really brought this all together and makes me proud to be a military leader here today, because I don't care whether you're at Fort Hood, Fort Bragg, in Washington, D.C. I might have only met you for 6 months or a year. You may not be in my organization. I may not lead you for an extended period of time, but I can be a mentor for life. And that's been the most humbling piece of this great journey as I sort of move forward. And getting a chance to work with you, even though it was just 6 months, we can be mentors for life. And mentorship goes both ways. So like I said, just for the mere fact that I'm on here today is because it was planted on your heart to make sure we stayed connected. So as mentors and leaders, we must both do our part to stay connected.
That ability for both the mentee and the mentor is one of those where win-win. That mentor will see a spark in them, might see a strength in them. And usually when you're mentoring someone, you're also learning. You're either learning how to help lead, how to help shape the future, how to help highlight those strengths, how to help address the weaknesses. So you're going to be getting out of the military in a short while. How do you see your role shifting as you eventually hang up the uniform?
So I don't know. Right now, I'm so very proud to serve and have this great opportunity. So, of course, being promoted to full bird colonel has been really good. And currently, I'm the AMC G8. So each day I get a chance to still serve and see that piece of it. But like you said before, I don't care who you are that comes in the military. The great and amazing piece is only 1% of our great nation serves in the United States military. So that's 336 people altogether and 3 million serving. So to have this special gift of service is very, very humbling. So it's one of those things that serving others is probably at this point in my DNA after 28 years. So I'll be humbled. So whether it's still staying connected with the soldiers that I've been blessed to get a chance to work with. And it's amazing that whether you're at church or whether you're at job, I was actually touching base with a young man that was at Walmart. I was talking to a young lady that was at the YMCA. It's just so many opportunities you have. And a lot of people have a different perspective of what they see the military is. They automatically think you only go back to fight, kill, and win. And yes, we'll win the nation's wars. But I will tell you that we have both great military soldiers. We have amazing civilians. We have active duty. We have reserve. There's so many ways to serve. And even with our contractors with the Defense Industrial Base, we all have an important role to play. And that's the same thing for firefighters, police officers, and teachers. So although you may not go in the military, the most important thing, like I said before, what's going to be your legacy and how do we tap into that amazing potential of mentorship and helping others accomplish those dreams? And that's been my goal. And I've been humbly and blessed to get a chance to learn a great foundation by being in the military. But I also understand that a life goes on no matter whether I'm in or whether I'm out. We as leaders must always do our part to unlock that unique potential there, help you be the best you.
Just getting started. You've built the foundation, but it's in your blood. So lifelong servant leader. That's awesome. And it'll take you places you never dreamed you could go. It opens doors. It opens opportunities. And you're having an effect on others that you might not even realize, right? I guarantee you've helped people throughout your career that you don't even know. You've had an impact on people that you aren't even aware of. And that legacy, like you said, is so important. And I think a lot of people overlook that, especially nowadays. They don't think about the impact they're having on others or the ability to impact others. And I guarantee you have impacted more people than you even know by being that positive influence. So I love what you're doing. Before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience today?
One of the things that I got a chance, I was humbled to be a part of the Congressional Fellowship Program. So I did not realize that when I selected 2008 or 9, it was a very humbling piece of the journey. And I didn't realize that when I was in high school, ROTC, even middle school, when I'd gotten a chance to serve on student council, was pretty amazing. But it was pretty humbling to get on the journey to be a fellow while working for a member of Congress and then later working on the congressional side. Well, while I was there was a young man that was in the 11th grade. He said, "Hey, I'm running for office and I want to both go to West Point and I want to be an Army aviator." And this young man was Mark. It was an amazing young man. And he said, "I want to also be an Army aviator." So getting a chance to work with a young man, both in high school, seeing him graduate from West Point and then turn around and be an Army aviator was truly, truly humbling. Now, what was pretty interesting about that, I had already changed from being a finance officer and switching from aviation to finance. But the amazing thing about that, I also thought about myself because I thought about it as a young man. I had seen airplanes and helicopters fly by, and I had a big dream too to be a pilot, a helicopter pilot. And someone said that it couldn't be done, but there were one or two people that said, "Hey, you can do it." And they encouraged me, motivated me, and said, "Persistence beats resistance. Just keep trying and keep having a good heart." And that motivated me. And so I was blessed to help him, but I've been blessed to help so many others along this journey. And a big part of that is dreaming big, but also hearing those dreams and helping people accomplish those dreams. So not just superpowers, understanding, untapping those superpowers, but outstandingly helping people accomplish their dreams. So it's been a humble journey. And as we look at how we can help folks, so whether it's at your work, whether it's at your home, whether it's in community, it's just so very pivotal as we go through or at schools. We have opportunities every single day. So I just ask God to allow me to be able to have those great opportunities to touch and interact with folks as we move forward, and just know that we're all given that special gift each and every single day. And like I said, with the energy and enthusiasm that you're providing right here, it's just another great example of how we can touch and do great things for this community through the ethos of the warrior as we move forward. Because one of those, leave no soldier behind. And that's a big piece of it. So I'm excited, and I definitely wish Godspeed to all the great listeners on here. People first, winning matters, supported by great teamwork, and Army strong. You got this. Keep doing great things.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, sir. And I hope you guys tune in to our next episode. Remember, stay hungry, stay true.